Begin. I will.
This is War of the Human Secrets by John G. Stoker.
If you look too deeply into the abyss, says Nietzsche, the abyss will look onto you. The face of war in our time is so awesome and so terrible that the first temptation is to recoil and turn away. Who of us has not to... I can't read.
Should I do it? I can read really fast and we need
speed. You're faster reading.
Who of us has not despaired and concluded that the entire spectacle of war was a manifestation of organized insanity? Yet we must find the courage to confront the abyss. I deeply believe that war is a sickness, though it may be mankind's sickness unto death. I know that the analogy between sickness and war is open to attack. It has been fashionable to assert that war is not an illness, but, like aggression, an eradicable part of human nature. I challenge this assumption. While aggression may be inherent in us all, war is learned behavior and, as such, can be unlearned and ultimately selected out entirely. We must therefore make an effort to look Medusa in the face and diagnose the sickness. Diagnosis is no cure, of course, but it is the first and most necessary step. I shall attempt this diagnosis by suggesting certain common themes from 6 case studies.
So that's rhetoric device right there.
What, look Medusa in the face, or...?
No, the fact that he's like setting up the... He refutes it almost instantly.
Yeah.
He has reputation.
So, wait, well then we need to rewrite that the third scapegoat doesn't have.
Yeah, that's scapegoat.
Okay. Because the two better ones have.
No, I mean what I was referring to is the fact that he's like now I'm going to attempt this diagnosis. He's
leading.
So the way that he's structure.
He's forward, but not as forward as the guy who says, "This is my view."
Oh, yeah. This was the cause of war.
Yeah, it was like too blunt, but this is nice.
It's nice.
This is nice. All right. Should I keep going?
Yes. 6
case studies. At the first general theme that compels attention is that no nation that began a major war in the century emerged a winner. Ding, 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 ding. Austria-Hungary and Germany, which precipitated World War I, went down to ignominious defeat. Hitler's Germany was crushed into unconditional surrender. The North Korean attack was thwarted by collective action and ended in a draw, although the Vietnam War ended in a communist victory. It would be far too simple to blame the communists exclusively for its beginning. The Arabs who invaded the new Jewish state in 1948 lost territory to the Israelis in 4 successive wars, and Pakistan, which wished to punish India through preemptive war, found itself dismembered in the process. In all cases, those who began a war came out a cropper. The nature of the ideology of the government at the start of the war seems to have made little, if any, difference. Defeat came to aggressors whether or not they were capitalists or communists, white or non-white, Western or non-Western, rich or poor.
Okay, that's a ton of parallel structure. Like that whole second sentence, the last 8 lines, is all parallel structured, and that last sentence too. Capitalist or communist.
I don't think he really wants that kind of...
Well,
it's a rhetorical strategy. It makes you grab onto it.
It's
like the pace that we...
Yeah. They're tied together, right? Parallelism and pacing. Yeah. Keep going?
Yes.
Okay. In our time, unless the vanquished is destroyed completely, a victor's peace is seldom lasting. Those peace settlements that are negotiated on a basis of equality are much more permanent and durable. In 1918, Germany was defeated but not crushed. Versailles came the crucible for Hitler's Germany, which was then brought down only through unconditional surrender. The Korean settlement was negotiated between undefeated equals. Both sides were unhappy, but neither side was so unhappy that it wished to overturn the settlement and initiate yet another war. An uneasy armistice or truce was gradually recognized as a possible basis for peace settlement. The relative insecurity of each side thus became the guarantor of relative security of both. Israeli learned this lesson on October 1973. The Fixers' Peace of 1967 had left the Arabs in a state of such frustration that they were compelled to try their hand once more at war. With their dignity restored in 1973, they found a place psychologically possible to meet with Israeli in a face-to-face diplomatic encounter for the first time in a quarter of a century.
I like the way that he just says something and then backs it up and
like the relative insecurity, whatever.
So
he's able to
synthesize.
And plus that's historical fact too, right?
So he's an adamant non-quote runner.
That's the evidence.
With relevant facts.
Yeah.
Yes. No children here.
When Hitler was a child.
He murdered frogs and kittens and Yeah, I did.
Frogs and kittens? He did what?
He killed them.
Yeah.
That's what
Kind of a
parents
creeper.
are like. Who's gonna grow up to be a
Okay. Personalities of leaders. Turning to the problem of the outbreak of war, the case studies indicate the crucial importance of the personalities of leaders. I am less impressed by the role of abstract forces such as nationalism, militarism, and alliance systems that traditionally have been regarded as the causes of war. Nor does a single one of the 6 cases indicate that economic factors played a vital part in precipitating war. The personalities of leaders, on the other hand, have often been decisive.
More reputation.
Why is it in italics?
I don't like his-
Is that
It's
emphasis?
sub-thesis.
Sub-thesis?
So maybe the fact that it's in italics and broken into sections.
Organization is
Yeah.
extremely well organized.
Well, this didn't get a 2.
Yeah, this one's really good.
He just comes up as a likable guy.
I know. And as an author.
No, what he does is he asserts authority, which is excellent.
And the italics is also there for like punched, right? It's like
Yeah, it's an
Yeah,
emphasis.
what is our time? What time do people need to leave?
It doesn't matter. Jalila needs to leave in like 5 minutes.
5 minutes.
Okay.
Okay,
Keep
Jalila,
doing
what
the
do you mean
case.
by your third point? Adam non-quote and writer. So he like
He-
explains everything
Well, he
extraordinarily
will give you a
well.
quote
He gives you
or
a
an
quote and he'll
example.
back it up with evidence.
Right, and then he will explain the relevance to his thesis.
Okay.
This is a long one.
Yeah.
Okay. The case material reveals that perhaps the most important single precipitating factor in the outbreak of war is misinterpretation. Such distortion may manifest itself in 4 different ways. In a leader's image of himself, a leader's view of his adversary's character, a leader's view of his adversary's intentions toward himself, and finally a leader's view of his adversary's capabilities and power. Should we just go over that really quick?
so that's more parallel structure, and it shows that his thesis is very well developed.
Organization.
Okay, these things we already know. Each of these is such important that it merits separate and careful treatment. There is a remarkable consistency in the self-images of most national leaders on the brink of war. Each confidentially expects victory after a brief and triumphant campaign. Doubt about the outcome is the voice of the enemy and therefore incomprehensible. This recurring atmosphere of optimism is not to be dismissed lightly but by the historian as an ironic example of human folly. It assumes a powerful emotional momentum of its own and thus itself becomes one of the causes of war. Anything that fuels up such optimism about a quick and decisive victory makes war more likely, and anything that dampens it can become a cause of peace. Okay. This common belief in a short, decisive war is usually the overflow from a reservoir of self-delusions held by the leadership about both itself and nation. The Kaiser's appearance in shining armor of August 1914 and his promise to the German nation that his sons would be back home before the leaves had fallen from the trees was matched by similar scenes of overconfidence and military splendor in Austria. In Russia and in other nations on the brink of war, Hitler's confidence in an early German victory in Russia was so unshakable that no winter uniforms were issued to the soldiers and no preparations whatsoever made on the onset of the Russian winter. In November 1941, when the mud of autumn turned to ice and snow, the cold became the German soldiers' bitterest enemy. Tormented by the Arctic temperatures, men died, machines broke down, and the quest for warmth all but eclipsed the quest for victory. Hitler's hopes and delusions about the German Superman were shattered in the frozen wastes of Russia. The fact that Hitler had fought in World War I and seen that optimism crumble in defeat did not prevent its reappearance. When North Korea invaded South Korea, her leadership expected victory within 2 months. The Anglo-French campaign at Suez in 1956 was spurred by the hope of a swift victory. In Pakistan, Yahan Khan hoped to teach Indira Gandhi a lesson modeled on the Six-Day War in Israel. And yet in Vietnam, every American escalation in the air or on the ground was an expression of the hopes that a few more bombs, a few more troops would bring decisive victory.
So that's a lot of imagery and a lot of detail in the whole Hitler business.
Yeah, he goes into great
Example.
detail.
And he parallels it with other examples.
So I just quickly, I wrote precise identification of manifestation of sickness in leaders and the illusion that there would be no need for proper uniforms is definitely a sickness and a delusion.
Okay. Thus, leaders on all sides typically engage in self-delusions on the eve of war. Only the war itself then provides the stinging ice of reality and ultimately helps restore